Hi everyone, JJIR here, and in this video we're going to see a little bit about Google Cloud Platform. So this will be a bit of an introduction, and essentially what we want to do here is to set up a free tier version of a VM virtual machine instance where we can actually have a portable, always on computer, so to speak, so that we can program anywhere and on any device we want. So as we do more videos on the VM instance and Google Cloud Platform, you'll get the idea of what this can actually do. But what I wanted to do here is basically start you guys off so you can see how to get the free version, so to speak, so you can begin using this for anything that you need. In the videos that we'll have later on, this will be geared towards things like Google Apps Scripts and GAM and Ubiquity and things like that on a practical level so that we can take advantage of what Google offers and we can work and do various things in various accounts at the same time. But for now, let's just begin by opening up the free version here. So the first thing you want to do is when you get into your account, you want to go into the page that is called console.cloud.google.com, which is up here. Okay, console.cloud.google.com, which is the Google Cloud Platform console here. So when you open this up, you might have some blue bar here that says that welcome and things like that. Up here, you might have something that says new project, this type of thing that will change later on. But basically, what we want to do is we want to get into here where the three bars are. And the three bars basically allow you to see what you're going to be using. So here, really quick, so you don't have to go through all the 50 million things. There's a few things that we'll be using constantly in the videos that they're going to be following. The first thing are the APIs and services. And here it gives you the possibility of pinning those up here. So we're going to grab that because we need him. We're definitely going to need the IAM and admin. So we're going to grab that guy and put him up there. And then we're going to be using the compute engine fairly often as well. So we'll put him up there. The last thing that we'll be using sometimes is the VPC network, which is going to give us our firewall rules that we will probably have to be constantly updating. So we'll stick that up there too. Those are the things that basically we use most of the time. There's other things here we might add later on, but these guys are going to be the more common things that we're going to be using. So when you jump in here, Google is going to give you a free, here's this, a free trial status. That's the equivalent to $300. We won't have to worry about that because what we're going to set up is actually going to be free for basically an unlimited amount of time. But Google will ask you to put in a credit card. So unfortunately, even though what we're going to be doing will be free for most of the time, you will have to add a credit card at the beginning so that Google will activate everything. Underlining that Google does not automatically start pulling from your credit card unless you formally give it permission. But in order to start off, you will need to add a credit card. So you'll have to have one on hand if you're going to begin with this. Underlining, though, again, you won't need that if you remain on the smallest virtual machine that Google offers, because in theory that should be free on a constant level, even if you go beyond the quote-unquote $300 that it gives you for free at the beginning, at least in accordance with what we have up to today, which is right now we're in September of 2018. We'll see if things change later on, and then I'll have to make another video on that. So here, what we want to do is the first thing to make sure that the VM instance that we want to create will work well. There's a couple things that many people do afterwards, but I just start off at the beginning. The first thing is to activate all the API services that you're going to want to need for Google Apps Scripts. So if you're not going to work for Google Apps Scripts, you really don't need to do much of this, but most of the videos that we're going to see in the future are going to be dealing with Google Apps Scripts. So what we want to do is pop in here, and I'm just going to give a couple examples. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that usually I set up when I'm doing app scripts. But basically, you just hop in there and then you go into enable APIs here. Typical one is, for example, Drive. That I'll add because I do a lot of things there in Drive. So you just hop in there, you click, you go to turn it on. I already had these turned on before because of setting up another VM instance before, but it'll something will come out and say enable here. So we can go back in here, for example, Google Cloud Messaging. And as you can see, a button comes out and says enable. I really don't use Google Cloud Messaging, but if I wanted to turn it on, you can just turn it on like this. And I'll do some circles here until it's set up. But basically, what this does is allows you to work with all the APIs that Google typically asks for Google Apps Script. So in the videos in the future, I'm going to presuppose this was already done. So the ones who are going to be following me with Google Apps Scripts in the virtual machine, you'll have to turn on most of the APIs that Google has. So everything with Drive, Sheets, Slides, you're going to need the ones for using for Classroom, for example. We're going to do a lot of Classroom ones. So Classroom has to be turned on. And again, it's the same process. I think this is already managed. Yeah, it's right there. So you just have to enable all these. It's a bit of a nuisance at the beginning because you have to turn them all on, but you're going to need them later on. So another one is scripts. So we can use that, the Google Apps Scripts API. Admin, so that we can deal with users. We're going to be working with users, so we have the admin SDK. The group settings API. These two are extremely important. You have to turn those on always if you're going to deal with groups or users or things like that within the admin console for users and groups. So those two are crucial as well. And any other type of API that you might need. If you're going to be working with databases, you have to turn those on, SQL, things like that, all those types of things. So what I usually do is you have sections down here that allow you to see what you want. So you can go into the basic ones. For example, you have email, then you have the Google Cloud APIs. You have 24 of those. The calendar ones, also very important. That's popping up here. YouTube only if you're going to need it. There's another one, the directory and the Google People API, also very important. So calendar, Google People, and all these types of things are also going to be important that you turn on so that you can work with users in Classroom and groups and Chromebooks, because we'll also be using Chromebooks here as well with the Google Apps Script. So all that type of stuff has to be turned on so that you're able to work with them through the virtual machine. So just make sure you do the APIs at the beginning, so those are all set up. Just keep enabling almost all of them. Obviously, you don't need all of them, but many of the ones that we're going to be using for the Google Apps Scripts, you'll have to turn on. So that's good to do at the beginning so you don't have to worry about it later on. I am an admin here. You have settings. When you go here, you can change the name. So usually it'll come out like new project or something like that. If you go into I am an admin, you go to settings and then change that to name to whatever you want, then have that ready. So when it comes out, you know exactly what project. So if you go in here to projects, you can add a new project or go to the project you have and organize yourself accordingly. So there's not much else there. There's a couple of things that we'll see here later on, but it's not needed right now. So after you change the name and things like that, the other thing are these guys here, which frustrated me at the beginning when I started off with the cloud platform. I didn't understand this, but basically, if you want any ports or whatever, you need to go into the firewall rules to open up those ports. Otherwise, you just keep getting errors all over the place. So here we have a few. There's two that I constantly use, which is Mosh, so you can jump into the virtual machine by Mosh, which is extremely useful, especially if you want to work on iPads or Android phones or things like that, so you can program, and you're going to need that activated. So, and then the other one is the Unifi or the UBNT or Ubiquiti controller, however you want to call it. So you need to open up those ports as well. So a lot of this stuff I have already here in my GitHub. If you go into GitHub/JasonJuritich/JJ-GAS, you'll have all the stuff that I have here worked on, like I've mentioned in other videos. And basically, you just have to click on Setup Debian. And when you click on Setup Debian, it'll bring this up. We're going to show where this is going to go. But here at the beginning, you have the firewall rules that I mentioned at the beginning so that you can add these to what you need to do here. So just really quickly, so you know, you just go here to create a firewall rule, and then go in here. You have to name the thing. So if it's using UBNT, you'll be going like that. Don't need a description. Priority and leave is 1000. It's always going to be ingress. Just allow. And specific targets, so you can put all instances in the network or put specific targets. I really just leave it as all instances. It hasn't affected me up till now, but some people will just tell you to put specific targets. It depends on what you're trying to set up. Sometimes the UBNT, the ubiquity controller needs specific instances, so that might have to be changed later on. Anyhow, the source IP range, you're always just going to put 0, not 0, 0, 0 slash, okay, slash is not coming out here, slash 0. Now, you don't need to do anything else with that. That's almost always going to be the same, almost never changes. And then down here, the second source filter, you can just leave it like that, and then go here to, let's see here. So you want to go down to specified protocols and ports here, and we have the TCP and UDP. As you can see here, we have the UDP. This is going to be for your MOSH. So you always want to put that type of thing here. So if we went over here, you just put UDP, and then you'd put this here, so that could be set up. And if you're doing the ubiquity setup, then just grab these like so. And then Control C, go back here, and then put them over here. So you just put commas, like you say, you have dashes and commas, things like that. Just put them as they are. If we go back here, I'm not going to create this because I already have it, but if we go back here and we click on this one, it's going to show you what we did. So if we edit this, it's going to give us, it says the network is default again, priority 1000, ingress allow, all instances, IP range, we have the 0.0.0.0/0, second source filter none, and then we have specified protocols and ports, and then we have UDP 6000 to, well, actually this is 60,000 to 61,000. So that type of thing is just what you set up when we're doing these so that you have it ready to go when you're working. And then the TCP and what I'm seeing right now is actually that there's a small error here because, as you can see here, this actually says 6,000 to 65 here, which I find rather interesting. So this might be a little off. The funny thing is I think it's been working, but we're going to edit it and we'll take advantage of this right here. So we'll go here, turn those off. Actually, what we can do is just reset this thing so that you can see how it is. So as you can see here, we can delete this and delete. And then it'll do circles for a few minutes while it's doing that. Then we'll just create another one. You don't have to wait for it. So we'll just go here and just put MOSH. And then, as we said before, we have ingress, allow, all instances. Down here, as we mentioned before, we put the 4 zeros in the slash, and then 0. And then down here, it's already set up. We're just going to grab this, take this off, put specified, and create. And then it will set that up for MOSH. So again, these things don't take 1 second. They take a few seconds and up to a minute sometimes, depending on how fast your internet range is. So here we have MOSH set up. So that should be set to go. It's just basically just copying and pasting what you have here. There shouldn't be any problem there. That must have been a typo what we had before. So anyhow, as you can see how the firewalls rules are set up. And these, like I said before, have to be set up. Otherwise, if you don't put them down, there's no way of going outside of the virtual machine so you can work on things like the ubiquity controller, things like that, or MOSH. So you need to make sure that the firewall rules are set up for any other app, or if you need another port or something like that, you need to set the firewall rule up so you can go out, so to speak, and work on your app or whatever else you're working on. So after the firewall rules and that is set up, so we have the firewall rules that need to be set up. We have the APIs that need to be set up. We can now go to the compute engine here and go to VM instances. And in VM instances, we're going to click on here, create. And here, we're going to put anything you want. You can put literally anything. As you can see here, you can even put a one-letter name. I'm pretty specific in just putting 2 letters. Don't ask me why. I just like doing it that way. But usually you'd want to put something much more clear here. So if you need a clear name, especially for people who have a lot of virtual machines, you're going to make sure that you're going to put something here that you know. So you could put, for example, Debian 1 or something like that. The important part here to make sure you have your free trial and your free tier later on is to go here to this one and go to US Central 1 Iowa. And then afterwards, we're going to go into, I'm sorry about that. Let's get rid of those things. You want to go into here and go into US Central 1A. And what that does is allows you to make sure you, when you put this down to the lowest version, which here we're going to go to micro, these three elements here is what allows you to have this continue on in a free manner, so to speak, even after the $300 that they give you is used up. So it says your first 720 hours, which is basically the month, are free. So you don't need to really worry about this. As long as you don't do anything serious with it, you'll be able to use this without having to pay for it for long amounts of time. So that's the advantage here in relationship to that. So let's keep on going down, and we can see here we have Debian. Okay, so a couple things here we need to do is, first of all, we're going to change, and as you can see, we have various possibilities here. We have Cent, and we have Core, we have Ubuntu, and then we have Red Hat, we have SUSE, we have Windows. Excuse me, we have various things here that we can use. We have things here with TensorFlow, with Debian. So Google promotes formally Debian because of its security and because of its universality. Ubuntu is actually based on Debian. Ubuntu is easier to use in a sense because it doesn't ask for as many permissions. Debian tries to block almost everything, trying to presuppose you're doing something out of place. But the idea here in Google is that it's much more secure. And on Chromebooks, actually, it puts Debian on for the new Linux option that they have there, which we'll see in another video. So here in Ubuntu, sometimes I need Ubuntu for the VM instance because certain applications like Ubiquiti have a tougher time with Debian to set them up. So it's not like it's impossible, but it's much, much faster and easier sticking it on a certain version of Ubuntu because it's already been programmed to work with that. So most of the time you want to choose Debian if you're going to go the free secure route, or if you want something that's going to allow you to install a few more things on it much easier, then you'd want to go with Ubuntu, the newest one, which would be the Ubuntu 18.04, which is the newest version of Ubuntu. So the LTS is fine. So this guy here is basically what you want to use if you're going to try to install almost anything. And the Debian Linux 9 Stretch is what you want to install if you're looking more for security or to follow more rigorously what Google wants in the future. So those are the two ones that I typically use. But I try to stick as much as possible with Debian here because of the fact that it's exactly the same on the Chromebooks, which means what I install here on the virtual machine is going to be similar to the Chromebook. So that's the reason why I choose that. Down here, we have the possibility going up to 30 gigabytes for space. That will still allow you to keep it on the free tier plan. If you go any higher than this, then it will ask you to pay for it monthly. So just make sure you just put it as a max of 30, and then you're set to go with this part here. So we'll just select that and keep it there. Then down here, usually I always put allow full access to all cloud APIs so that the virtual machine can talk to all these APIs that we stuck here before. And then we're going to put that HTTP and HTTPS traffic. If you're stuck with security, obviously you don't want to put the HTTP, but I put them there just in case because sometimes some of the ports have problems even with the firewall if you don't put both of those. So I just make sure they're both there. So that will end up. So this would be the price if you weren't on the free tier. So it's important to underline this is only for one virtual machine, meaning if you can't add 3 virtual machines like this and all of a sudden it'll all be free. But rather you have one free virtual machine instance with this configuration, these 3 elements here. There has to be US Central 1 Iowa, US Central 1A, micro, with maximum of 30 gigabytes, as we mentioned on here. These elements here have to be set like this to have one free virtual machine instance. Otherwise, when you go above that, if you try to put other virtual machines, which you can do, sometimes I have various and sometimes people have hundreds, but you can only have one free here. So as long as you like that, then you're set to go. And most of what we're going to do will only require this. So that's more than enough for us. So afterwards, we're just going to go down here and we're going to click on create. And this can, again, depending on the Wi-Fi speed, how Google servers are, sometimes this can take literally 10 seconds. This can take up to 2 or 3 minutes. Depends a lot on how things are. As you can see here, with circumstances, we're in the mornings. My Wi-Fi is pretty good. Servers in Google are working pretty well, so that means this got up and running pretty quickly. So he's set to go for what we need to do in the future. So before we finish off the last part here, just want to mention one other thing that I found out as I was working on this. It's in order to be able to jump in with Mosh, and that means using apps like Terminus or an awesome application on the iPad and iPhone, which is Blink. Um, all these things allow you to go into the VM instance by Mosh, which is in theory much better than SSH. You have to go here and you have to click on the name here. And then down here, you're going to go to, first you're going to click on edit so you can actually add something. Then down here, you're going to add the SSH keys. So here you want to click on show and edit, and this is where you're going to add the key. So both applications like Terminus and Blink, in the apps, they will give you keys. So basically all you have to do is just copy the key and paste it here. And I'll try to do another video on this to be more specific. But another thing I learned here is that just pasting is not going to be enough. There, at the very end, there's a whole big line of numbers and letters here. At the end, there's one space, and then you put the name of what you're using. So whatever the username is, you have to look at your username, and then you have to put your username at the end. So I'll make another video on this, but it's just so you know that you have to add that key here. Otherwise, Mosh will not work because the VM instance wants to know what application is being used in a secure manner. So you have to add that there. So we'll see that in our video, but at least you know that it's there. So going back here, the last thing I want to do is to go and SSH into this. What's funny is that Google keeps on using SSH, even though in theory Mosh is better. So I don't have enough experience with that to actually tell you which is better. From what I understand, Mosh, the advantage of Mosh is that it allows you to work on networks that are really slow, and SSH requires that the network be relatively fast. So anyhow, what we're going to do is we're going to SSH into this, and we're going to right click this guy and show as a tab so we can pop them in as a tab here next to the rest of them, so we're not having it floating around. So it's this could take, again, depending on the Wi-Fi and Google servers and like that, it could take a few seconds, up to a minute. And then when we jump in here, I'm just going to click on and put clear so it gets rid of everything. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and, again, click on Setup Debian. And this guy here, what I've done after many hours of experimenting is I've set it up so where you do not have to click on any yeses, which is pretty awesome. So what this means is that all you have to do is select this right here, Control C, you go back in here, you click this, and the nice thing about Terminal in Google Cloud Platform is that you don't have to fight with the right click thing. You can actually use Control V here, which is not something very common in the terminals. Usually you have to do it in a much simpler manner. So Google allows you some Control V and Control C types of things, which is pretty awesome. So basically, before we get this thing going, because this is actually going to take, with this tier that we have, this free version, because the RAM and the CPU are so small, this will take up to 20 or 30 minutes to install. Whereas if you choose a stronger, bigger virtual machine, it can take basically 3 to 5 minutes, depending 100% on how Google servers are and your Wi-Fi. It varies to a fairly big degree sometimes, which I find interesting. But either way, this version, the free version, can take between 15 to 30 minutes. And then sometimes if you get lucky and if you do this, it's funny because sometimes even during the day, the speeds will be different. So if you do it really early, all of a sudden, it'll be much faster. And then if you do it at a certain other moment during the day, it'll be much slower. And then if your Wi-Fi is off, then that can affect it. So there are a whole bunch of elements that can affect this. So it can go as fast as 10 minutes. It can go as slow as 30 minutes. Just keep that in mind when you're doing this. But the advantage here is that in the end, you do not have to stay in front of the machine here to click on yes or to affirm or press enter or anything like that. I've set this up so that everything that we're going to install will stall automatically. The second I click on enter here, it's going to begin, and then it will run, and until it finishes, you don't have to do anything. So you can go grab a cup of coffee or go watch Netflix, anything else you want before it finishes, and you'll be just fine. So basically what this is doing is installing things that we're going to need in the future. It's installing things to work with Google Apps scripts like TypeScript and things like that. In the future, I plan on doing a couple applications with Express and React and things like that. So we're putting in a whole bunch of Node libraries here that we're going to be able to use, and a couple frameworks that we can use and set things up in the future, all on this free version that we have in Google here. So a lot of stuff, most of it will be with Node, because I primarily work with JavaScript. So that's basically what we're going to be seeing in the videos in the future, because Google Apps Script is based on JavaScript as well. So a lot of the things are going to be set up here. We also have a TypeScript, like I mentioned, that will help us to debug. You have a lot of debugging things here with TypeScript, which is also very interesting. We're going to be using Vim as our editor, so that'll be interesting, and we're going to see how we're going to set that up in our video. But a lot of the stuff that we're going to be using for the future it's going to be set up here, so we don't have to redo it later on. So if you know anything about programming, then you can jump in and see what's here and then take out what you don't want or don't need. If you're starting off like me, then all you have to do is just paste it in here and just click enter like we have here, and it'll get running. And we're not going to watch all this because it'll take too long, but you get the idea. After you're done, then you'll be able to follow the other videos that we have, because I'm going to presuppose that this step has already been finished off. So I really do hope that this has helped you guys to start off with the Google Cloud Platform. And if there's any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will start very slowly trying to make some new videos on the things that come up. Just want to underline, I'm starting off with this too. I'm not an expert or anything like that, but I just want to begin to share, because I know that a lot of people like myself want to begin using this, and sometimes we have no idea where to begin. So this hopefully will help you guys out to hit the ground run, hit the can't even say the right thing, to help you guys begin correctly and start off in a firm manner, so that you guys can begin programming like myself. Hope this helps. Take care.